This is video number 3 for AP Biology Chapter 11. This video is going to be focusing on working genetics problems backwards, which is something that you probably didn't do much of in regular biology, and there's, I guess, a little bit of a pattern to it that you do need to practice. Do not skip working these problems. There's something that you need to be able to think in that way, and practice is just going to help you to do it. The textbook is going to be needed in order for you to work on this. So I have a problem number 9 in the textbook on page 227. I'd like you to work on questions A, B, D, and E. Go ahead and pause the video, give A a try, you can check your answer, and then you can come back and see if you can do B, D, and E and check your answers to those as well. So now get your textbook, open to page 227, work on 9A. So just like in any other genetics problem, the first thing that you want to do is pull out the information that you need. So for A, it gives us the offspring, and what they're wanting us to do is to figure out the genotypes of the parents. All right, so, and you did read through and go know that the 1-pod condition is dominant to 3-pod, normal leaf is dominant to wrinkled leaves. All right, so we start out with 318 offspring are 1-pod normal leaf. So notice how I write that. 1-pod is the dominant condition, so that I can't tell if they're big P, or big P, little p. The second position, and we know of one dominant allele at least, the second position I just use an underscore to keep track of that. The leaf for those 318 is also the normal leaf, which is, once again, the dominant condition. So they're going to have big L something. All right, so that's how I would write that genotype for those offspring. Okay, now the other phenotype that we see is that 98 of them are 1-pod wrinkled leaf. So 1-pod, once again, is the dominant condition, so I'm writing it like that. And then wrinkled leaf is the recessive condition. So there are some individuals that are little l, and I've written it like that. We also are noticing this ratio here. Approximately a 3-to-1 ratio is what we're seeing. And just working through genetics problems, this is what Gregor Mendel always saw when he was crossing individuals that were heterozygous for a particular trait. Remember, he always saw a 3-to-1 ratio. So that gives us some information as far as figuring out the parents' genotypes. So we want to know the genotypes of each one of these parents. All right, so parent 1 crossed with parent 2. All right, all of the individuals, all of their offspring have the dominant condition as far as the pod shape. So the dominant 1-pod condition. So that means that there's actually more than one possible answer for this problem, because it would be possible, in order to get all offspring that are all dominant, you could have parents that are big P for both traits. You could have one parent being big P, little p, and the other parent being big P, and that could be either way. So you could have that parent, this parent being big P, and this one being big P, little p. And then the final possible option, gosh, there's actually, it could be 2 ways too, would be to have one of the parents being big P, and the other parent being little p. This problem A is actually, of the 4 that I want you to try, the one that is the most complicated. So this could be the other way around, where this parent is little p, and this parent's big P. Okay. So all of those combinations are going to give you offspring that have the dominant 1-pod condition. All right, so now the trait for the recessive allele, for the L's, is a little bit more simple. That one is giving us a 3-to-1 ratio. So we know that in order to get a 3-to-1 ratio, you're going to have this cross. That's going to give you the 3-to-1 ratio. Dominant, 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 recessive. 3-to-1 ratio. So we know that the parents' genotypes for that trait must be heterozygous. They must both be heterozygous. So this is a possible genotype for the parents. This is a possible genotype for the parents. And actually, this one and this one are the same, because those L's are the same for both of them. So this is the same. And then, once again, these two are kind of the same, because the L's are going to be the same, but that's okay. Okay, so if you have listed like all of these, but you have like one of these missing, this one, or this one, that's still the correct answer because those really are the same crosses. But all of those are possible answers. All right, so that one was the one that was the most complicated there. Next, I think you're supposed to be trying B. So give B a try. Okay, same kind of idea here where we have the offspring given and the ratio, and we need to figure out the genotypes of the parents. All right, so this one is simpler than the last one. It only has one possible answer. It looks like all of the individuals have the three-pod condition, which is the recessive condition. Therefore, all of the genes that they must be inheriting from their parents must be recessive as well. So that is the genotype for the parents for that particular trait. All right, so then once again, we have a ratio here that looks like it's about a 3-to-1 ratio. I made a mistake. I made that little mistake. That one should be with an underscore. Okay, so we do have a 3-to-1 ratio for the offspring as far as the leaf shape. So 3-to-1 ratio, once again, same as that last problem. In order to get a 3-to-1 ratio, you're crossing two heterozygotes. So the genotypes of the parents must be those combinations of alleles listed. All right, so if you're doing okay, you can just kind of fast forward and take a look through the answers for D and E. Otherwise, I'll work through them, and you can try them and then follow along with those answers. All right, for part D in this problem, I have the genotypes of the offspring listed. Notice the ratios here. So if we're taking a look at the dominant versus recessive for the pod condition, the Ps, we have about 300 individuals there and about 100 individuals here. So that's also a 3-to-1 ratio. So we know the 3-to-1 ratio, big P, little p, and big P, little p. So that would be their alleles for the pod condition. All right, but if we take a look at the ratios for the normal leaf versus the wrinkled leaves, there's about 200 individuals that have the normal leaf and about 200 individuals that have the wrinkled leaf. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. The way to get a 1-to-1 ratio in genetics is to cross the homozygous recessive with a heterozygous individual. So if we take a look, this is the cross that you would be doing. Quick pun it. Big L, little l dominant, big L, little dominant, little l recessive, little l recessive. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's what we do see here is 200 to 200, which is a 1-to-1 ratio. So for that particular trait, the parents must be, one parent's heterozygous and the other one is showing the recessive condition. All right, finally, for part E, I would take a look at part E and then immediately really kind of be like, I think I know the answer to this one, because that one, if you take a look at those ratios, you should notice that it is in a 9-to-3 to 3-to-1 ratio, where you've got the two middle ones have the 70s, and so I'm like, is that a third of the 223, and it is close to that neighborhood, and the 27 is close to a third of the 72s, and so you really are looking at, for part E, the ratio being a 9-to-3 to 3-to-1 ratio, and in the previous video I told you to memorize that a 9-to-3 to 3-to-1 ratio you would get by doing a dihybrid cross. So that's going to be the cross. You could go through and take a look at them, and you'll notice then that there's a 3-to-1 ratio for both of the traits, and so that 3-to-1 ratio for both of the traits indicates that both parents must be heterozygous for both of those traits as well. All right, so that is how you work problems backwards. Give some of those a try in your study guide.